So in the first video, we did some analysis using Excel and answered the first 3 questions on exercise 1. How many users responded to the survey? From which 3 disciplines did we get the most number of responses? And what is the average overall rating for the quality of library service? So the 4th question is very similar to the 3rd. Is there a difference between the overall rating between male and female respondents? So if we go back and look at our data set, again, we're going to Control A, select all of it, insert a pivot table with all of our data into a new worksheet. And what we want to understand is what is the overall quality rating, the average, right? So quality rating, we're going to select Value Field Settings, Average. So this is our overall quality rating, but what we want to understand is what's the difference between male and female respondents. So if we drag sex down to rows, we can see that we now have a row for female, a row for male, and a row for blank. This was evidently not a required field, and the average rating for each of those. So again, we don't want to have too many numbers after our decimal point. So we're going to go here and reduce that down to a 2 decimal point response. So we can see that the difference between female and male respondents is very, very slight. So I would answer this question that there is not a significant difference in the overall rating between male and female respondents. The next question is very similar to that. Is there a difference between the overall rating between different user groups? So again, we go back to our data set, look at our data, got all of it selected, going to insert another pivot table. You could modify a worksheet. If I were just answering these questions, I would modify my pivot table each time and just move the variables around. That is perfectly normal and common practice. For the purposes of learning to do this, learning to use these tools within Excel though, that's why we're creating a new worksheet each time. So I'm going to create a new worksheet, and again I want overall quality rating, average, and then I want to look at user groups. So similar to by gender, I now have them divided out by user groups. So is there a significant difference between any of the user groups? Not particularly. You can see our lowest value is 7.03 average and the highest is 7.58. So we don't have a significant difference between our user groups. So I'm going to call this user group average. And name this one average, overall average, average by sex. Okay. So questions 6 and 7 are asking us to identify what is the relation between patron satisfaction with how they're treated in the libraries compared to their overall rating of the libraries. So we want to evaluate the responses in 2 separate categories, 2 separate variables, and compare those and see what kind of correlation we have. So when I go back to the data, this one's going to be just a little bit different. So we want to evaluate first how they're treated, column E, with the overall rating, column G. So what I want to do is open up a new worksheet, and I'm going to create a formula, or use a formula, called correlation. So if I equals, so I'm doing a formula function, and I start putting in correlation, you can see I get correl. Now when I do a correlation function, it now asks me, I'm looking at the correlation between array 1 and array 2. An array is just a set of data. In this case, array 1 is going to be how patrons are treated, their satisfaction with their treatment. So I'm going to choose all of column E. And then my formula says put a comma after array 1 and then choose array 2, which is the patron's overall quality rating. I hit enter, and now on sheet 9 I have the correlation between how patrons' satisfaction with how they're treated compared to their overall rating. So I want to have this not too many decimal points, so we're going to go back down to 2. And then I'm going to put some information here so that I know what this number is all about. Correlation of how patrons are treated with overall satisfaction. So now I have a definition for my 0.59. Question 7 is very much like it. What is the relation between patron satisfaction with library support for teaching, learning, and research and their overall rating of the libraries? So again, I'm going to do a correlation function. Correl. Going to choose array 1, satisfaction with support, and then overall quality rating, and then hit enter. You don't have to close the brackets. You can, but if you hit enter, the function will work. And again, I want fewer decimal points. And this is correlation of patron satisfaction with support and overall rating. So there is a higher correlation between patron satisfaction with support for their teaching, learning, and research than there is with how they're treated in the libraries to their overall satisfaction. So these are the answers to questions 6 and 7. So I hope you can see how Excel can be used to do a variety of analytical tools. Pivot tables are very, very useful. You can, again, I'm going to select this one, which was our user group average, and let's now add sex. So if we can now analyze faculty responses and see are there differences by gender. Significant differences. Graduate students, not significant, but there are some differences. And then we can add in additional variables. Satisfaction with their treatment. And I need to change that to average. And we can look at this as their overall satisfaction lower, higher, and do lots of comparisons. So again, you can modify pivot tables in any way that helps you to slice your data up and make it more usable and useful. Once you understand the data in your data set, you can use Excel to do a variety of analyses and share that information as needed to tell the stories.